most Republicans, including me, believes when it comes to Trump, there is no law. It's all about getting him. There's a double standard when it comes to Trump. What happened with Hunter Biden is that the FBI weighed in to make sure a story didn't break for the 2020 election. We now have whistleblowers at the FBI telling Senator Grassley that they were told to slow down and back off Hunter Biden. And I'll say this. If there's a prosecution of Donald Trump for mishandling classified information after the Clinton debacle, which you presided over and did a hell of a good job, there'll be riots in the streets.
Riots in the streets. Elected Senator Lindsey Graham of South Carolina is promoting riots in the streets. If, by the way, let's pay close attention to what he said. If Donald Trump is charged or any kind of actual consequences come to Donald Trump for taking classified documents, there will be riots in the streets. Not if Donald Trump took those classified documents, that's already been determined. It's if they do something about it. Lindsey Graham is openly saying he's against law and order because there's no order in stealing classified documents from the White House after you're president. The law would say you have consequences for that. Lindsey Graham says that there's consequences within our law and order society. Their followers, their supporters will riot in the streets because they're against law and order. Let's just keep real. This is what he's saying. So this is some of that legal trouble that Trump could be getting into, in case you guys haven't been keeping track of the growing number of documents. At issue is this affidavit supporting the search and seizure of what has been reported to be upwards of 300 classified documents that have been purloined from the White House. The affidavit reveals that there were already nearly 200 classified documents retrieved from Mar-a-Lago in February. If true, this would make someone culpable for a felony offense. And here's the ironic part. Under this 2018 law that President Trump himself signed into law with Hillary Clinton in mind. You know what else Donald Trump has done really quickly as well is responded to what Lindsey Graham said. Do you think it's pushing back? Do you think it's saying, hey, let's calm down with that violent rhetoric here, guy? No, he truthed this, re-truthed actually what Lindsey Graham said. Justin Baragona from Twitter did point this out. He said it didn't take long, and shortly after Graham threatened riots if Trump is prosecuted, Trump posts that same video on Truth Social. Kind of sounds like a call out, like, hey, you guys, I'm not saying it, he's saying it, but you should still listen to what we're saying. It's an endorsement. Let's keep it real. And lastly, let's not forget this other thing too, because Lindsey Graham wasn't always a big fan of Donald Trump. In fact, he pointed out if Donald Trump got a hold of this party, which he has obviously and still does, this is what he tweeted back in 2016, Lindsey Graham. If we nominate Trump, we will get destroyed and we will deserve it. Now, they won that first time and then they got destroyed the second time. And ever since then, their brains have been destroyed with talking about how they haven't been destroyed yet. So let's start with the rioting, the shooting, and the Civil War talk. Maybe kidnapping governors of certain states. Let's do all those things instead of actually participating in our democracy. We're through with that whole thing because we can't win. What are your thoughts here, David?
Can you imagine if Barack Obama had taken documents from his White House that had information about how the United States conducts espionage in the Middle East and all of our spying and satellites and intelligence data about how we conduct spying in Russia, and maybe there was some nuclear code starting, the Republicans would have been going crazy. And yet here's Lindsey Graham, who's just like, no, the law cannot apply to Donald Trump because of Hillary Clinton. I get the frustration that so many people had with Hillary Clinton and her server, but it is a totally different degree of magnitude what Donald Trump has done in terms of grabbing these documents, telling the courts and the Justice Department, we've given you everything back, and then them finding out, no, there's even more, and these are some of the most sensitive materials that the United States government has. To make the comparison between Hillary Clinton and Donald Trump is simply an effort by Republicans to try to confuse people, get people riled up, and perhaps get them to sort of launch the Civil War. I'm just not sure Lindsey Graham, where he would be during the Civil War. My sense is he would be hiding in a corner weeping.
I always thought that all this talk about how January 6th wasn't a big deal, overlook it, whatever, they're just complaining, this is nothing. It was Antifa, it was BLM, no, it was our guys, they're being politically persecuted. All the whole spectrum of things that they've been saying. I always thought, no, they know. Like, yes, they know they're lying, but they know what the reality is. They just need to cover it up. So then, with that thought process, this kind of throws a bit of a wrench into my thought process. Because look, now he's threatening violence again. If you know that Donald Trump, the Republican Party, were pushing all this violence from January 6th, and you're just looking to deny it so that you don't have to have any kind of consequences for these actions, that's one thing. But then right after, you do it again and try to incite more violence if consequences come for someone on an unrelated issue. Something that's nothing to do, well, we don't know yet, seemingly nothing to do with Lindsey Graham. Because he's got issues in Georgia with them trying to overturn elections there. That's
He's
his
also
problem.
got issues in Russia. I mean, he made that mystery trip to Russia in 2018 and couldn't sort of explain what he was doing there. So again, if Lindsey Graham is carrying water for Russia because Donald Trump was willing to give the Russians some classified information about the United States government and how we monitor Russia, then okay, this makes perfect sense that Lindsey Graham is trying to distract everybody from that issue and focus everybody on, oh, this is unfair. This is, we're gonna have fights in the streets and civil war. It's complete nonsense.
He seems to be incredibly beholden to Donald Trump. Yes. People always said stuff like he must have dirt on him, and that's why Lindsey Graham can't say anything else except for dropping to his knees and kissing the ring. That's all he knows how to do. There must be something, but he's in some trouble himself, it seems, because he can just be quiet. I'm not sure if Lindsey knows that. You can just be quiet. But then once those riots in the streets happen that you're calling for, you'll be running just like Josh Hawley.